All right, you guys, we are talking about angles and measure today. So find your packets. Let's go to, what page are we on here? Page 8. Page 8 of the packet. It starts with, as you can see, angles and measure. All right, so I have a little bit of vocabulary for you. You probably know what an angle is. It looks like this. But let me just recap because we have talked about lines. We have talked about segments. We have talked about rays. We have talked about planes, which are like the wall of a classroom. This is called a plane, or the carpet of a classroom, whatever. So now we're adding something new. We are adding an angle, which is made up of two rays. This is an angle. That's the new word of the day, okay? And I have a vocabulary word for you. I have it defined, and here's an example. Okay, so it's 3 letters where the vertex is a really important word. The vertex is the point of the angle. Okay, so that is a vocab word that I need you to know and I need you to recognize when I use it. It is the vertex. It is where the two rays come together. Here is the vertex of this angle. The vertex, it's the point. Okay. And so if I am going to name this angle, like if I want to point to it and be like, hey, this angle right here, I could use the number 1 because the 1 is shoved here inside the angle in the point and the vertex. So I could call it by angle 1. Remember how we name points with like letters? You can name an angle with a number like that. And you can name it with 3 letters. I guess I skipped this part. You trace it with your finger. So you start with one of the endpoints, R, S, T. That's one way to name it. So I'm going to put a little angle symbol, R, S, T. I could also go the reverse way. So I could start on T and go through S and then to R. You have to follow it with your finger. So another way of naming that would be T, S, R. And notice how the vertex letter is always the one in the middle. That's what I wrote right here. The vertex letter has to be in the middle. You could also name it by calling it angle 1. I could also use like the symbol angle 1 because there is another way of naming it. One letter if only one angle is formed from the vertex. So there's only one angle here, right? As opposed to having like multiple angles. If there's only one angle, which there is, then we can just call it by the vertex, which would be angle S. So there's a couple different ways that I can say, hey, yo, Bobby, look at that angle. And you say, what angle? And I could either call it, well, angle RST, or I could call it angle TSR, or I could call it angle 1, or I could call it angle S. There are many ways to name an angle. Okay, so let's practice with this one. Let's see, name the angle in 2 different ways. I'm going to trace it with my finger, F, X, T. That's one option. Angle F, X, T. I could also go the backwards way. I could start at T, go to X, and go to F. Angle T, X, F. Pay really close attention, you guys, that you are writing these letters in the correct order. In geometry, it's very important that the X, the vertex, must be the letter that is in the middle of the 3 letters, okay? Name the vertex, it's angle X. Name the 2 sides of the angle. Do you see how these 2 things are rays? It has an end point that does not have an arrow, and it goes through a point with an arrow. Okay, so that is important. Those are rays. So when you tell me that you are writing down a ray, it needs to have the proper symbol above it. So one of the rays starts at X and goes through F. So I'm going to name that XF. The other ray starts at X and goes through T with an arrow. So XT. And remember, when you are talking about rays, these are rays. The end point is really important, right? So if it's a ray, the end point is the X. That letter has to go first. I'll leave the other 2 for practice in class. Let me flip the page. And I have some types of angles that you've probably heard of before. So we have acute angle. An acute angle is a small angle with a small measurement in there. You can think about it being like a cute little angle. Yay, it's so tiny. As opposed to an obtuse angle is a really big one that looks like this. It's where the two rays are really, really spread out or far apart from each other. That is an obtuse angle. I like to think of the word obese. It kind of looks the same. If someone is obese, they are very large. This is a very large angle, okay? This is a very small angle. The two rays are very close together when you draw the swoop. These two rays are very far apart when you draw the swoop. Okay, a right angle, I bet you know what that one looks like. It is a perfect 90-degree angle. It looks like a corner. And we actually have a symbol we use to denote a right angle. We put a little box here. That means that it is a 90-degree angle. Okay, and then the last thing, a straight angle. So it's kind of a trick, but it's a straight line. And a straight line is 180 degrees. So you have one ray going this direction, and you have one ray going this direction, and it makes up a straight angle, which would be 180 degrees. Okay. So let's just classify a couple of these and then I'll move on. Okay, I'm seeing the word 90 degrees and I wrote the word 90 here, which means this is a right angle. Yay, nailed it. Letter B, 23 degrees. That is definitely less than 90 degrees. So smaller than 90, it is a cute little angle. So I'm going to write acute. 180 degrees. I have that picture right here. That is a straight angle. Good thing I took really good notes. And the last one, 113. That is a bigger than 90, but less than 180. So that is this one. This is bigger than 90 degrees, but it is smaller than 180, so it's actually in between them. Looks like this. Obese, obtuse. I'll leave the rest for practice in class, and I have one more thing that I want to talk to you about on the next page. You're doing a great job keeping up. We've done these with segments, and now we're going to do these with angles. So I have an angle here, and I have a ray that goes in the middle of it. Okay, that's kind of weird, but this is telling me that B is inside. It's on the interior. There's B right there. It is inside this angle. That means that I have two angles that I can add up together. AOB plus BOC. Trace it with your finger, and that is how you name the angles. So the green one was starting at A, going to O, and going through B. Again, AOB. Trace it with your finger. Angle AOB. Didn't give you very much room. Sorry about that. Plus, when you take the pink angle, you get angle BOC. So you start at B, go to O, then to C. And it equals the entire angle. AOC is the really big angle that we're talking about here. So starting at A, going to O, and finishing at C. Okay, so it's just breaking up this big angle right here into two smaller pieces. Let me erase this so it's not so confusing. My first angle is AOB, and I'm adding it to BOC. And when I add those two angles together, I get the full angle of AOC, the outside pieces. So let's just read these really carefully, and then we'll be done, and we'll do some practice. Calculate the measure of ABC. So you might think that you're understanding what that is talking about, but you're going to raise your hand. You're going to say, Mrs. Johnson, is the answer 40 or is it 90? And I'm like, well, you're not reading carefully, okay? So let's look at ABC. Trace it with your finger. A, B, C. Oh, it's that entire angle. So what I need to do is I need to add 40 plus 90 together. And that gives you 130. So it's 130 degrees. You have to trace it with your finger, okay? How about this one, ABC? So A, B, C. That's what this question's asking me about. And do you see this 135 that we have right here? The 135 with this arrow is meaning that this entire swoop is 135 degrees. So another way that you could label this to make it less confusing is from here to here is 135 degrees. They tried to label that like this, just so the picture wouldn't be super confusing. But if the entire angle is 135, this part is 60, we need to figure out what this part is. So we're going to take our 135, which is the entire angle, 135. And I'm going to subtract this piece, and I'll be left over with this piece, which is what I need. So minus 60, I believe that gives us 75 degrees. And the 75 is this part. Okay, we'll practice some more in class. Thank you for watching, you guys. That is our brief explanation of what angles are. And please call us over if you need some help.